All right, hello everyone. Welcome to the E4 Youth Virtual Talk. This is our second virtual talk of the summer. Welcome. Right now, I'm currently in the car I've been moving around just to handle a couple of things, but it's fine. We're going to get through this because the show must always go on. So I go to UT. I'm a double major in journalism and communications and leadership. And today for our second talk, we'll have Francess Hales. So Francess is from Washington, D.C., and she lived in Brooklyn, New York for nearly 20 years. She began her career making tape labels and ordering lunches at National Video Center. It was where she cut her teeth and began to learn the world of post production. This world offered Francess opportunities to work at MTV, J. Walter Thompson, NBC Sports, and most importantly, Drago 5, as well as various production companies. Francess always enjoyed working on Spanish language projects and contributing to Scratch VO over the years. TBD Post is Francess' new home, where she happily tackles films, reality TV, and broadcast commercial projects. So, welcome to the stage, Francess.
Hi.
Hi, Francess. How are you?
I'm well, Alicia. How are you?
I'm doing good. It's good to see you here today. For
Thank you.
sure. So I think one of the most powerful things that you can do as a speaker is simply sharing your story. So could you tell us a little bit about how your childhood and how you were as a teenager?
Yes, I'm from Washington, D.C. because my parents are actually from Sierra Leone, from Freetown, West Africa, from Freetown, Sierra Leone, in
Really?
West Africa. And my father studied at Howard University. He studied music and education. So he was a double major. And so when he came to D.C. after living in Minnesota, he brought my mother over from Sierra Leone, and that's why I was born in D.C. So when I grew up in DC, DC was known as Chocolate City. So it was because the majority of the city was Black. So I grew up as an African American, as an African child in my household, and as an American child in America. And as a teenager, I was very fearless. I enjoyed absorbing as much as I could around me. I ran track as for sports, and I was very much involved in theater and drama. So I'm still a drama queen.
It be like that sometimes. That's so awesome. Wow. How were you able to discover what your passions were?
Well, that for the love of theater always, I guess, brought me to the stage. It always involved, I guess, music, and then I watched a lot of films. I'm the youngest of four, so I watched whatever my brothers and my dad watched on TV, which consisted of movies and sports and news from my mom, I guess. So those are the three things that are persistent in my life. But my passions developed in college, actually. I was the co-chair woman of our concert throwing committee at the University of Virginia. So our school was student run. So they let me as a 18 and 19-year-old throw concerts for the entire university, which was life-changing, but that's where I started to kind of hone producing skills that I didn't even know would develop and persist. Out of that, I developed a love for music videos and did little extra internships. And around that time, back in the day, there was a popular editorial system out called Avid, and I convinced myself that I wanted to become an Avid editor. And that eventually drove my passions and ended me, and that's how I ended up where I am today, is wanting to become an editor, and I'm a post producer.
Dang, that's actually cool. One of my friends was learning Avid this past year at UT.
Yeah.
So that's actually cool. I actually know what you're talking about. Okay, so did you have any mentors on the way that impacted your experience or your chosen path?
I did. I had several people who helped elevate my career. In fact, my old boss made me a post producer when I thought I wanted to become a project manager. It's kind of his decision at the time. And I was lucky enough to be able to lean on people because I didn't have a traditional mentor. I didn't have someone to sit me down and say, hey, this is what the process of post-production is. I definitely had to learn on the fly. But within that, I definitely had a lot of support, and that was really helpful. And still today, every job is different, every project is different, every client is different. So so I always need support. But yes, I did have various people I could lean on.
For sure. Can you explain to the audience exactly what a post
What am I going to do? What is my life like?
What is
Yes. To kind of break it down, there are what I kind of like to describe it as 3 stages of production. So there's pre-production, where you plan everything, and production is where we would go out and shoot or record everything, and post-production. So I specifically work currently right now at a post-production facility, and the services that we offer are graphic services, audio, color services, editorial services, and other technical conform services. And those services we offer those to advertising agencies and to production companies, or to filmmakers. So these services are for people who need to go out and shoot a commercial or a film or whatever it is that they want to shoot on video. So in the pre-production stage, they'll plan what they're going to shoot. And Jaleisha, I sent you a Tuesday morning director's script. It might be a good example of just showing the process of how we do what we do and what I do specifically. But nonetheless, an advertising agency, for example, will send our company, TBD Post, a script or a deck, a creative deck, and it will explain or outline the intention of the commercial or the spot that they want to shoot. What we're looking at now is a director put together all of his ideas for a TV commercial for a company called Tuesday Morning. So our company, or myself, I will evaluate this creative board, or what we call it, or scripts. When I look at it, I'm looking at the timing, how long the actual spot is going to be. I'm looking to see what it entails. Does it entail live action, where we're actually shooting people, human beings? Or does it entail animation, where we would have to go to our graphics team and actually have them animate something? Will we record audio only on set? Or will we need to bring someone in to record audio, because there is what we would call an announcer or a voiceover line, someone that says, thanks for shopping at Tuesday Morning, just for a corny example. What is the picture going to look like? Do we want it to look really sunny and bright, or do we want it to look, dark and gray? So we have people who sign up to all these different professions, who create what we call like a post-production magic. So the agency will send us this creative board. I'll take a look at it and say, and confer with my team. And the team will say, we need 5 days to edit this on a system like an Avid, like we were talking about, an editorial system. We'll need a couple hours to record some people. And after we record them, we need to mix the music and the sound effects or what have you together. And we also need a title that's going to come up on screen, and we need a cost assigned to all of these services. So depending on how much time you need or what the service is, I will put together a budget that says, it tells the agency it's going to cost you $10,000 for us to take all of the video that you've shot on set or on wherever you shot it, and all of the audio, and put everything together so it looks like the storyboard or the creative that you thought of. Once we send this bid off to the agency and they approve it, I become kind of like a project manager. I book the team. If I'm working at a staff company, I'll book our internal team. If I'm when I worked as a freelancer, I'd have to hire each individual person, the editor, the audio engineer, the graphics designer, the colorist. And our team will then work together in a timeline to tackle each part of the project. It'll start off with our editor will edit something together, and then we will go through a graphics process if need be, and whatever else the project entails. But normally we'll edit, We'll do an audio mix, so all of the audio sounds perfect. We'll also put all of the audio and the video together in during I guess what we call conform. I guess a process of what we call conform, where we're putting all the components together and we're making them look beautiful for broadcast television. We're taking footage that probably was shot at low quality, and we're bumping it up and making it, working with the high quality footage and putting it all together. Once we do that process, we send it out to our agency or to our partners, who will then broadcast the commercial. So that's the gist of our kind of post-production process. But what I do is I'll hire that team. I'll stay on top of them as much as I can, and I'll be the intermediary between our team, TBD Post, and the agency. I'll speak to the agency producer and make sure that we're in lockstep with the process, and that they like what we've edited together. If they don't like it, then we'll revise it. So once you see a commercial on TV or you see a film, you may think of how they shot it, and you may think of how all the actors, and you may think it sounds really great. It is a laborious process to get all of that together. There's a team of people that have to work in tandem to make sure that all of that comes together, that beauty. So I also have an example of this Tuesday morning commercial. If you want to see it, it'll give you reference to just one example of a piece of work that I've done since I've worked at TBD, which I'm very proud of. This is through an agency called McGarry Jesse, and Meredith Roach was the producer on it.
I'm putting some life in the house. Whoa.
The first time someone dragged a pine tree into their living room and threw stuff on it.
Trees look nice in the house.
Had to be pretty unique, but that's okay. With wonderful, ever-changing gifts and decor at prices worth celebrating, Tuesday morning is pretty unique too.
What? Commercial? I seen that before too.
Well, yes. I chose this spot specifically because it combined our entire team at TBD Post. We have a lovely editor who worked on it, and we realized that once the commercial was shot, we lacked some VFX. We needed to add some VFX into it. We needed to animate a title. We needed to record a voiceover. So that commercial has all of the components that we offer, all of the services that we offer have been put together in that commercial. So at the very beginning, where you see the man dragging the Christmas tree through the snow, that the whole scene there did not exist as you see it. We have a lovely, talented guy in-house who actually built that, and that's at the very beginning of the spot. If we can walk through it if you want, or step through it. But there's a lot of TV magic. So this opening scene was a composite of different scenes, different shots, and then our lovely and talented Dennis went in and added some snow magic. When you see the gentleman throw ornaments onto the Christmas tree, that was something that in production they had to fake and dress the tree, but before and after. So again, there's this scene was created and mocked up. The windows behind him, that snow scene didn't exist. This is a little bit of magic here, where on set they had what they call a rig. So the Christmas tree was a little magic. There are what we call cleanup. There's a lot of pieces of when you go do a shoot, everything isn't perfect. So there's a team that has to go in and clean up any kind of paint that might be on the wall, or a production team might leave a cord in the scene and you might have to paint that out. So there's a whole team of people, like I said, that make the magic that comes out. So to make a long story long, that is the post-production process, which is just basically after production. Post meaning, after in Latin. So.
Yeah, for sure. Man, that's actually really cool. Like, for real. Yeah. I never thought all that work went into that short commercial.
Well, exactly. I did not know that this world existed growing up. I had absolutely no idea. So, and I still explain it to people who still have no idea that it exists. So.
Yeah, I only know about the actors, but not everybody else. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So what obstacles have you had to overcome to sort of get to where you are today?
Well, I kind of feel like obstacles are, but I was thinking about that question. I guess what I consider obstacles are things that what people might consider obstacles, I guess, have been kind of like normal to me. So I don't know if it's like more of an obstacle, but I'm a mother. I'm a very proud mother. And I had a kid when I was very young, a daughter, a beautiful daughter. Hopefully she's watching now. And for a moment in life, I kind of didn't know what my future was going to be. But that didn't stop me from moving to New York and like within a week of visiting and landing a job and thankfully with a lot of support, but moving to New York and then just kind of still addressing and living my life. So that was not necessarily an obstacle, but it was something completely unexpected. I think I think just in general, just working in a corporate world, you find obstacles with sometimes having your opinion heard in a room. It's kind of more of a challenging question for me to answer because I see myself and feel myself as a citizen of the world. I feel like I belong everywhere and anywhere that I want to be. And it's other people's issue if they don't want me there, if they don't respect me, if they don't care. But I try to just, I guess, hopefully avoid as many obstacles as you would call them, as just by, definitely kind of being myself. So I thankfully don't have any horrible stories to tell you. That's not to say that other people don't, but I've been very fortunate in my career to not have had to struggle too much, luckily. But
that's for sure. I definitely understand that. And also, I really want to ask, like, how do you like navigate being a Black woman in a male-dominated space?
Well, I guess, again, it's one of those, it's another weird question for me because not necessarily weird is I don't walk into any kind of space feeling or recognizing kind of male dominance, I guess, until someone wants to assert themselves. So I can honestly say that I try to remain truthful to whom I am in every kind of situation. So I have worked with, at J. Walter Thompson is an agency, an advertising agency in New York. And I've seen grown men throw temper tantrums, jumping up and down because they're upset about the reality. But the reality is I definitely love my profession and my career has afforded me a lot. I do realize that I work in video and commercials and films and television. I'm not saving lives, so I don't try to take myself too seriously, even when other people do. So I kind of bob and weave with my temper. I try to temper everything. Even when I'm upset, I try to temper it. And if I'm upset at work, that means I'm really, really upset because no one really, I never try to lose my cool at work. But I try to just always have cooler heads prevail and try to take some time to think. But that's not to say that things don't bother me, but I basically just don't walk into a room feeling like, okay, this is a male-dominated world. Not to say that it isn't, but I've been lucky enough to try to make sure that my voice is heard. Whether it's respected or not is a different story, but I just try to live in the moment. And again, I feel very lucky that way. I haven't really had any obstacles per se.
For sure. I mean, do you have any advice for any like young people who are sort of breaking into these spaces and they may not be used to like being like minorities in spaces like these, especially when it comes to work, or they may not have encountered those things yet?
Yeah, for sure. Before we started this, I kind of did a tally, and from between freelancing and staff positions, I've worked at probably 22 or 20 plus different companies. And I counted 3 other Black post producers that I've ever worked with. 2 were male, which is rare, and 1 is a female. And I realized, or the way I consider myself, is a pioneer. I consider myself a pioneer in almost every world where I don't really see myself in. So I think 1 is the attitude that you must realize and understand and accept that if you're already in the room, you're there, all right? So you're worthy, and you shouldn't feel worthy also clearly if you didn't make it into that room, but just know that if you're in the room, you're worthy. So all you have to do is go to work and try to do your job. My friend always said it's not show friends, it's show business. And that's also very, very true in advertising because it can be very cutthroat. But the most you can do, the best you can do for yourself is be yourself. At my last job, I used to do things what I call unapologetically Black. I used to in emails, just write things like, I'd be like, "Hi," or "What's up?" or anything kind of colloquial, just to make sure that people know there's a diversity in the way we speak, and the way we think, and the way we react. I do not believe in conforming. I don't believe you need to be quiet. And that means also the volume of your voice. There are some cultures and some people just aren't. I do believe you should be able to read a room and be respectful. But I think the most important thing is to know who you are and hold on to that. And when you start to crumble, go back to that support system. Hopefully you have one, someone you can fall back on, because you're definitely not the only one. I mean, the only one in your position. I'm sure your friends or other people or family have gone through it where you feel like, I'm the only, I walk into a place and I don't see myself. That's a very real fact and a very real thing. One thing I do, and I know it's kind of a weird concept, but I'm grateful right now to kind of live in a Black and Mexican community. In New York, I definitely purposefully lived in a Black community because going to work at certain stages of my life or during the day, my community wasn't Black. So I think it's important to just basically hold on to yourself and have things that remind you of who you are, while making sure you assert yourself and don't think that you're anything less or anybody less or any less than anybody else. If that's of any help.
And thank you so much. Yeah, for sure. And then in those spaces, how many people?
I'm so sorry. I just lost your audio, Jaleisha.
Study.
I'm so sorry. I just lost you for a moment. Do you mind repeating yourself, please?
Yeah, I said, in your space, how many people have college degrees, and do you have?
Okay. How many people have what? Oh, did you say college degrees?
Yeah, I think she said, how many people have college degrees and how has your education played into your role as a manager?
Thank you. Actually, I am unsure of the number of people who have college degrees where I work currently. And I will say that in my industry, I would say it could be half and half, that people may or may not have college degrees, which is nice because of, I know that we are, here in an education forum. But sometimes things don't work out for people. So sometimes school may not work out, but it doesn't mean you can't be successful, right? So again, that goes to being true with yourself. I'm not encouraging anyone to drop out of school. I'm just trying to say that if things get harder or tough, there are ways to continue educating yourself and to also employ yourself. But in my profession, not a college degree isn't necessary for some of the work that we've done. But there are specialists, like people will take a graphics class or people will take an editorial class or different classes or, to hone their skills. So you do still need to be skilled and educated, but again, I'm not discouraging education, but you don't necessarily need to have a degree.
Also, and just for like future creatives like looking for jobs, how do they find jobs that sort of align with their values, especially when it comes to things like talking about Black Lives Matter or police brutality, or even jobs that offer COVID-19 safety?
Well, I think it's all in doing the work on your company. I have to say, or the job that you're applying for. Great examples of humanity is, gosh, I can't think of the company right now that I worked for. Wieden and Kennedy. They've been a leading example of being very vocal about their stance politically, and I guess more so socially, socio-politically. And they are not only vocal about it, but they're public about it. So you can definitely see what their track record is and be proud or disagree with it, but at least you know about it. So I think it's possibly, kind of doing your research, feeling out the people that you would potentially work with, and more importantly, seeing where your boss's heads are and how you align or maybe even disalign. Like I'm only as strong as my boss. I only have as much power or autonomy or can do whatever I want as long as my boss allows it. So I think it's just important to know your company and know their beliefs, and then you can choose to join them or not. Clearly some of the best companies have issues that you may not agree with. So yeah.
And how do you handle dealing with like COVID-19 stuff during a time like this?
Well, again, I feel really lucky and spoiled because I do feel like I lucked out with working at TBD Post. Our team got together and made plans and resolutions based on, what the city guidances are. So we immediately, we were lucky enough in March to be able to start working remotely. I know some people can't. So when I say lucky, I feel really lucky for that. So as a post producer, I'm able to work kind of virtually from wherever. It is nice to be in the office and see people's faces. But what we did is we came up with a plan to work remotely. And now we're just trying to follow guidelines, because they're ever shifting to make sure that we're safe. So they supply masks and sanitizers and air filters. And again, and that's only if we, have to go into the office. So it's all still very new. But thankfully we are set up to work remotely, and some things were trial and error. Some software systems work better than others. But now I think we have a really good thing going, and I feel, again, very lucky there. So, and I'm lucky because they support my anxiety over COVID. I think they saw it before I did. So again, being vocal and being yourself is most important. If you feel anxious about going into the office, you have to tell your boss that. If you live in a multi-generational house and you're scared you might get your grandma sick, you have to tell your boss that. If all of the things that we know, hopefully, and listen to about COVID are important, especially for what we know for the Black and Brown community. So we can't even pretend that there isn't a disparity. So it's really important to be open and honest about how you feel.
Yeah, for sure. So right now we're going to take questions from the crowd in the Q&A section. But just one last question while we wait for people to send in questions. Can you sort of talk about how you deal or how like people have been dealing with like the Black Lives Matter protests and stuff in your workspace? Is it something that y'all talked about at work, or is it something that the company's more silent about?
It is something that we've definitely discussed at work. And it's one of those things that I'm beyond grateful for, that we were able as a company to talk about it. It is just one thing. So I would say we've been having, and we've had discussions, and we hopefully will continue to have ongoing discussions. I think we kind of, I think we're we've been able to offer our own opinions, as well as pitch in on sharing different ideas about activism. So we kind of have we have a Slack channel, we use Slack in-house. And one beautiful thing that came out of the recent uprisings is that we were able to start a channel about activism. So internally we get to share different ideas or different ongoings. I think there are personal projects that people are trying to work on. I think we have maybe company initiatives that we'd like to take. It's definitely a very sensitive, very difficult subject. And I am the only African American at my job, but I'm definitely not the only Black or brown person there. And I couldn't, again, be more grateful to talk to people who I consider to be, I guess, a bit closer, because I, work with them every day. I'm grateful that they are thoughtful and just know that, this is it's a moving situation. It's never ending at the moment. So I think we're just committed to listening and committing to being advocates as much as we can. But it's not easy. It's a fight.
Yeah, for sure. So our first question is from Jocelyn, and she asks, how have you built up your personal brand and give you more work exposure?
Oh, they're exciting. I know brands are a thing. Jocelyn, I'm a little bit of an old lady. So I don't have a brand for post-production. I do have a brand for other things that not safe to talk about work. But we have an online presence as far as our company, TBD Post. So we have an Instagram, for example. We have a website. I know when we were able to move around a bit more, the company is a bit more social and hosted social events. Thankfully, joining this team, they definitely have clients that like them, that come back, and also have new clients. So I think we're kind of lucky with the platforms that we have now, but I think, we could always, there's always room for improvement for everything. But we definitely just have our social platforms that help us, and a word of mouth is a big thing as well for us. But I think everywhere else you look, if whatever way you can break through with your Instagram or your Facebook or your website, as long as your product is good, then your brand is going to break through, right? So to whomever that may be. I'm not saying that you just put it out there and everything's going to be great, but I don't know if you need to do anything differently than what's going on right now. I guess there's TikTok now, so.
What you got against TikTok?
That's another new platform. I'm telling you, old lady, I don't know these things. Another alternative, and you guys, the youth will make up something new in 2 minutes. So, I'm looking to see what my next new, platform is going to be.
All right, well, we're going to teach you a TikTok dance or something. So what is the favorite project you've worked on?
I am a sports loving fool. So working at NBC Sports was probably one of the highlights of my life. But that was also more because of the culture of the company. I was there during the US Open and hockey and the French Open and hockey. So I know this is all kind of silly stuff, but there was nothing more amazing than working at a place and looking up and there were just, television monitors filled with sports going on all day long. I loved it. I loved very much working at MTV as well too. It was the hardest job I've ever had. But it taught me to work hard. And it was very, very, very rewarding. So that was for a different reason. That was definitely just because of the love of the game, being a client. It was a lot of fun. But yeah, so those are kind of highlights for NBC Sports and MTV. Those are hard to beat.
Yeah, for sure. Debbie said, are y'all accepting interns? She would love to work for y'all social media or just promote y'all or work on development.
Well, I would say, why don't you get in touch with us? Look at our website, and you definitely already have my information now. I have not. We have since I've been there, we haven't had any interns at the moment. But that's not to say I don't know what the future would hold. I'm sure we could always look for help. There is a jobs link or a jobs portion on our website. So feel free to submit, and it would be great to see. We are always accepting applications or resumes, I guess, for interested people. So in that regards, you should definitely hit us up, and we'll see what happens. We are a small team, and clearly right now we're working remotely, but I never say never, right? So please be in touch, Debbie.
For sure. And what do you think is the biggest opportunity for creatives right now?
It's hard because now we're physically apart, but I was definitely going to say, I just kind of having real world experience, like, but I guess to reshape that answer, for the creators, I guess, in the sense of the world, is if you have the time, I guess, or if you can utilize your time, right now you literally can create or do anything that you want, right? I have personal projects that I've been hoping to work on that are more creative projects that I just literally haven't sat down to work on it and kind of execute. But in my past creative life, I have produced shows outside of post-production. My best part of it, my favorite part, was just the planning and that building and the creation of whatever it is that I want to do, and leading up to the execution. I think if you have time on your side, basically what you can do now is just try to perfect what it is that you want to create. If you can execute it from your home, then do it. And if you can't, then at least plan it as much as you can until we can get back into the world safely. I don't know if that's helpful, but the world has kind of slowed down. So we literally have the world, at our feet or on a string. At this point, you can target pretty much anyone or anything and try to get your foot in that door if that's what you want, or try to build up anything at the moment while we're all kind of slowed. So reach out to all your contacts, talk to people you never thought you would talk to, hit up people that you never think that you don't even think you should, and go from there. That's what I would say.
For sure. And then what are just like the biggest challenges in your business area?
A new business can always be a challenge, I think. It's always nice to acquire new business. And I think, thankfully, Austin has talented shops here. And that is to say, nationally, I think the biggest thing, the biggest opportunity is just trying to forge new relationships at times, so that, you can have different experiences. Even for post-production, it's nice to work in commercials, but it's also nice to work on that film, or it's nice to work on a different type of project. So I think even for ourselves, we value doing something different. But I would think that the biggest challenge, especially right now, but just in general, would just be trying to win over new business. That's what we all do in this world. We try to get the next client or repeat business in that sense. So right now, of course, being socially distanced, it's hard to go out and do any kind of production shoots. So we have to become creative, or agencies or other creators have to become creative. Like we've done recent projects that are the content is user generated, or people have used animation, or they've gone back to old content to try to revise to make it look new. So definitely not being able to just physically be out in the world poses new challenges for our industry, and it just kind of trickles down.
Do you think that, Jocelyn asks, what is the most valuable thing that you've learned in your industry?
I am becoming more fearless, like I used to be when I was a teenager. I think I went through a stage or stage and age where I was a bit more hesitant, but I like the evolved me. So I think with time, you just claim your voice, and I think that also just comes with age. But I think growing into my skin and becoming more of who I am has been most valuable. I think also learning something every day is also still very important to me. I work on the post-production side as kind of like would be a project manager, but I haven't done anything technical. So I'm not an avid editor. I'm not an audio mixer. So I actually really like kind of learning technical stuff on the fly, just kind of picking people's brains. So I hope that if we all finally get back together, that's something I can do more of, is going back to those roots of that passion. So kind of feeling the fire in my belly like when I was younger.
For sure. Awesome. And then
yeah, I have a question though, like jumping off of that. Yeah, how did you start on the technical side of it, and what have you learned from managing a project, and how do you have to balance this management side of yourself and just the technical process of working on a project like this?
Well, I currently don't work on anything. I currently don't have any or work on anything. I currently don't work technically at the moment. I'm definitely more managerial in a sense, or managing things. However, you do have to have a sense of clearly know what the technology is or what's going on to kind of figure out how you plan a project. So I initially, when I was working at MTV, they were a very generous company at the time, and they paid for classes. So I took an Avid class working at it while I was there. So I basically started taking classes, so even to either draw myself into that direction or at least to understand what was going on. I was the very first post-production coordinator at MTV, and they had 22 edit rooms. So literally 22 different projects going on. And I was in charge of making sure that everyone had their editorial systems and that everything was taken care of. And it was definitely a daunting task. So I took classes because I needed to know what this Avid system did and how it worked. And from there, I definitely leaned on the people that I worked with. So I would ask editors things, and I would ask audio engineer things that people that are specialists in their craft. I lean on them and still do to this day, because I'm not, some things I know and some things I still don't know. So taking that specialty class was really important to me. Like there's no offline editorial school, right? There's no post-production school. So some things you do have to learn on the fly, and some things you can take technical classes for. Now, with that said, again, I guess the balance just comes from really leaning on my technical team for if I don't know certain things. And then also, so that helps me become the better post-producer. So I lean on them for certain things, and I take my skills and then kind of like try to rectify those two and like smooth it out.
And was it difficult to transition from doing more hands-on work to more of a producer manager role?
I guess I've always tried to maintain a more hands-on work, but outside of my post-producer life. So I try to fulfill myself that way in my personal life. So I kind of haven't left the stage. I kind of haven't left maybe the actual aspects. I kind of haven't left. And that's what I consider more like hands-on work. I definitely still have like projects, like I said, personal projects that I am striving towards. For me, that's more hands-on. Again, since I was never an avid editor myself, I didn't really have to worry about separating myself from a machine to now having to deal with people. But I will say that every personality is different. I definitely consider myself a firewoman, and sometimes a psychiatrist, sometimes a friend, sometimes somebody, a punching bag. It's every day and every project, everything is different. So it becomes difficult sometimes to navigate personalities, but that is par for the course, and you just have to keep your eye on the prize, knowing we're all trying to do the same thing. There's one common goal, knowing that someone is probably upset or worried about something. It's their legitimate worry, even if it's not yours, but just trying to help them navigate their issues, basically trying to make sure that, it's gonna be okay. We'll figure it out.
Right. Okay, go off. Could you sort of tell us about how do you I don't know, for me it's personally difficult just to balance, do the work work-life balance, and it's just like, how do you do that, or like, what are your tips on like, managing like your time and like, especially now that you're at home,
Yeah. Well, I tried to maintain the same type of routine that I had, not routine, I'm definitely not keeping up the same routine, but the same practices at work that I do at home. So at work, when we, take a break, I'll be like, hey, I'm going to take a break. I made sure I did that at home because I know that I'm going to need some downtime, and I'm going to need a time to tell, my coworkers, like, for this amount of time, I'm not going to respond. So don't expect a response. Because as a producer, I can work from 8 o'clock in the morning until 8 o'clock at night, or how people will email at certain times. Or call at certain times. Sometimes people wake up early in the morning and they're ready to go, and they'll send like an email like 7 o'clock in the morning. What I do is I have boundaries. If my work hours are 9:30 to 7:30, if they're 10 to 7, then I don't answer an email. I'm not going to answer your Slack. I'm not, unless it's a phone call, then I realize, okay, it must be something important. If you're texting me and I see it's something important, then I'll do it. My phone is on silent pretty much most of the day. I don't have my phone. I don't even want to like listen to it, but I have to because there are people out in the world. But I basically try to maintain a certain number of hours that I work within, and then around that time I just don't. Otherwise, I would never have a work-life balance. So I just hope that my phone numbers and my email signature, everyone knows how to get in touch with me. So if it's that important, I hope that people call or text. But otherwise, I don't try to check work emails early. I don't try to check them while I eat. And I don't, and when I take a break, I sign out of all of my work, Slack or email, just so you can legitimately have some downtime. So I encourage that.
For sure. And then you mentioned this earlier that you use Slack. And I just want to know about like any other like tools you use for like communicating with your team, because I know like as a creative, when I started working at E4, I didn't realize that like I don't know, I thought that jobs just like emailed you, but you actually, like, when you're working as a team, you have to use like different types of things. So you have to use like Slack, and I know they have like Monday and all these different things, and like how do you navigate like using all of those things for like different companies and stuff.
I'm not gonna say that I'm not gonna say that it's fun, right? I'll put it that way. It's not necessarily the most fun, but I have to say that again, I'm used to kind of hustling during my workday. And again, that truly honestly goes back to MTV, where I had such a lot of volume of work that I learned to just get stuff done. Like, I have to knock this out. I got to get it done. I have to get it done. However, it's not necessarily always the best practice, because it's better to kind of, clearly slow down. But recently, I think with the lovely part of being at TBD, I think we've had conversations. We're starting to have conversations like, do we need to use this? Do we need to communicate? Do we all need to communicate on Slack and email and this, that, or the other, whatever platforms you have at your different jobs? I would say, of course, you should learn them, because that's the tools that you have. And then if you feel empowered or you have a voice, I think it's important to just talk about these things with either your operations manager or your boss or whomever. Or maybe you just pick and choose if you're able to. Maybe you only communicate an email. Part of my job is I ask people how they like to communicate. Some people like to have a phone call. Some people like to email. Some people like to text. So I'm used to offering that service to my clients and people that I work with. And maybe that's just something you need to establish for yourself. It's okay to say, maybe this isn't most comfortable for me. It's okay to ask, like, can I do this? Or I prefer to do this. So I think it's important to, like they say, work smart and maybe not hard. So if they become cumbersome, I think you should speak up about them as best you can.
And I have another question about how do you build your reputation to begin with in the industry? Do you start more by focusing on your product or focusing on building relationships with other people? Or is it kind of a balance between that?
Well, I think it depends on what your product is. In my world, in this case, relationships are key and most important. So thankfully, have been able to get jobs or be able to work kind of fluidly because of the relationships that I've built. In my non-post-production life, I think it's important that you build your brand. Your brand is the most important thing. And it's kind of like, Field of Dreams. Y'all might be too young for that. But if you build it, they will come. So I think it's more important to make sure that you're happy and proud with the product that you have. And then you can go sell it with ease. It's nice to know a lot of people, but if you don't have anything that they want, there's really there's no point, right? Or you don't want to promise something that you don't have already. So that would be my advice. But definitely start with your brand. You can always meet somebody tomorrow, but you can't always have a great brand.
Awesome. And what is the most difficult things that you've had to overcome, like in response to isolation at this time?
Still overcoming it. The most difficult thing is being physically far away from my family, because I'm moved from New York, and my family's right now in D.C. and the DMV, D.C., Maryland, and Virginia, and also Philadelphia. So that's like the hardest part, is not knowing when I will be able to physically see them again. I mean, I can talk to them, of course, and we can video chat, but that's really hard.
Yeah, no, I definitely feel that. Yeah, it's been a minute since I've been home. Yeah. And just to wrap things up, what do you do for fun outside of work?
I love to dance. So I love to dance a lot. So that's one thing I love to do. I also like to cook. So I can spend hours like planning what I'm gonna like go buy at the grocery store and then like putting it together. Hours, no joke. Takes me days to cook, but I love it. I don't think I guess I don't want to sound pretty much, standard or whatever. Cook, movies, dancing. I do love to speak Spanish, and travel is a very, very, very big part of my life. Travel is probably the most important thing in my life. So I miss that very much. So I'm sure like everyone else. But yeah.
For sure. What style of dance did you do?
What'd you say?
I said, what style of dance do you do?
Oh, well, no, I mean, I'm not professional. I mean, I like going out dancing to the club. Not that dance. So there was no Misty Copeland hanging out over here at all whatsoever. It's just little hip hop, whatever gets on now. I just like to hang out. When you said what I like to do for fun, going out to dance is like one thing I like to do for fun.
Yeah, no, that's definitely understandable. Well, thank you so much for coming to talk to us today. I really appreciate it. Is there anything else that you wanted to say before we close out?
No, I hope that I was helpful in any way. I would just say, good luck to everyone. I know things aren't easy right now. I have faith in the youth. I have faith in the youth, y'all kids, and saving the rest of us and saving the world. So we need you. I need you. If I can help any of you in any way, I will definitely do that to help support you. I know times are really rough right now. It will not last forever. We know things may seem forever, but everything is really, hopefully, just temporary. So this too shall pass. So good luck. I would say if you need to cry, cry. If you need to yell, scream, laugh, do it. Let all of your emotions out. Never be afraid to be yourself, and be unapologetic about who you are. Be an advocate for what you believe in.
Period. Dang. Thank you so much. Yes, which is that was really, really helpful.
You're welcome.
I really appreciate it. And I'm sure that everyone else appreciates it too. And if you guys enjoyed the talk today, make sure you tune in next week on Thursday at 1 p.m. We'll be having another speaker come talk again. We're going to have amazing speakers come to talk to us all summer. So thank you guys so much for tuning in.